Good morning. Once again, it's good to see you this morning. Back in 1995 in Leonia, New Jersey, a gentleman was arrested for stealing a truckload of Snapple. You know what Snapple is, right? It's that fruity drink. Anyway, this gentleman had just been fired as a delivery driver for Snapple, and because he was so addicted to the drink, upon being relieved of his duties, he dressed up in his delivery uniform that he hadn't turned in yet, and he stole an entire truck of his favorite beverage. The police officer working the case says that the perpetrator just had an unabashed love for Snapple. Can you relate? Absolutely you can. Every single one of you sitting here in this auditorium knows exactly what that guy was going through. It may not be Snapple. It may be a career. It may be money. It may be winning. Whatever it is, we all know what it is like to be ruled by an appetite. And it may sound crazy. It may seem strange. We may chuckle at a story about a guy who stole a truck full of Snapple, but our appetites can make us do some pretty crazy things, right? Appetites are powerful. So powerful, in fact, that they can rule your life, which means that they are a major threat to our integrity. You know, we talked about integrity last week. Do you remember our working definition for integrity? Integrity is basically it's the decision to integrate my heart's desires or values into my daily actions. Our working definition is integrity is doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. Integrity is doing what you ought to do even if it costs you. Sounds simple, and it is. It's not that complicated. You do right because it's the right thing to do, and doing wrong is the wrong thing to do. But you and I both know if it were that simple, everybody would be doing it, including us. It's not always easy to put into practice because our appetites are demanding. And it's not even enough to believe right things. You can believe right things and do wrong things. Our appetites pose a major threat to our belief system, and they can make us hypocrites. Several years ago, when my son was small, I coached his soccer team. I actually did that for several years until he got into high school. But he was like 7 or 8, and I decided it would be really neat if we put a sponsor on the front of our jerseys, kind of like the pros did. And what better advertiser than the Oldham Lane Church of Christ? I thought this would be a great idea because then my kids would be walking billboards, and we could get a little bit of sponsorship from that, money-wise, to help pay for the uniforms. Well, the first game came around, and we didn't have our uniforms yet. And so we had to wear last year's uniforms. And the game was going well, but at the same time, it was a heated contest. Things got chippy, and I got a little angry at some of the calls, and I said something to the ref, and the opposing crowd didn't like me saying something to the ref, and so they tried to defend the honor of their team, and then my fans got involved and tried to defend my honor, and it got pretty ugly, and I was embarrassed. And after the game, my assistant coach said, you still want to put Oldham Lane Church of Christ on the front of our jerseys? Point was well taken. I knew what he meant. But I thought I was right. I thought I was defending my team. I thought that I was maybe defending the integrity of the game. But in actuality, I was allowing my integrity to be compromised by an appetite for winning. I thought about that here at Walnut Street. I thought we could get some stickers to put on our back windshields of our cars. I love the Walnut Street Church of Christ. That would be great advertising, right? As long as you're a good driver. If you're a bad driver, it's bad publicity. Get into a road rage incident and they find that you have that sticker on the back of your window. Integrity is our decision-making filter. Before engaging in an activity, we need to ask ourselves this question: how will this affect my character? What will this do to my influence? Here's another way to look at it. What's your price tag? Can you be bought? If so, what's the going rate for your integrity? Every person has a price. What's yours? How much is your purity worth? Some have sold their purity pretty cheap. They have given away their purity to a boy or a girl who said that they loved them, only to find out later that that love was nothing more than lust in disguise. For our young people, understand that your purity doesn't belong to you, that it belongs to your future spouse and no one else. How much is your innocence worth? There are those who have sold it pretty cheap. They have given their innocence away to the internet or to entertainment or all sorts of lust of the flesh. How much is your mind worth? You know, actions begin in the mind. We often think that we can think certain things and then stop short of actually doing them, but that's not true. The mind is the devil's playground, and many people have left their minds unprotected. For many of us, our minds are the most vulnerable part of us, which is why we have to follow Paul's rule of thumb, which is to take every thought captive. How much is your integrity worth? Because some have sold it at bargain basement prices. They have lied, they have deceived, they have stolen, they have cheated, they have gossiped, they have been completely dishonest in order to oppress others, to get ahead, to move up the ladder of success. How much is your soul worth? What will a man forfeit for his soul? You know, Jesus asked that question. What will a man give in exchange for his soul? Unfortunately, he'll give just about anything that will satisfy for the moment. You know, the devil is seeking to buy your loyalty. He knows your price tag. He knows your appetites. He knows that all appetites have a one-word vocabulary. Do you know what it is? More. Our appetites have a one-word vocabulary, and that vocabulary, that word is more. Our appetites are rarely fully or finally satisfied. You will never be filled chasing a worldly appetite. You will never find value in the instant. Satan knows this, but he also knows that our appetites are powerful and that human beings have an insatiable hunger for now, which is why the merchandise always seems attractive and pleasurable. It always looks like a bargain, but you will always pay dearly in the end. There is no eternal value to what he has to offer. What seems pleasurable in the short term eventually leads to misery and agony, and such is the consequence of being a sellout. And the Bible is filled with people who were sellouts. Adam and Eve were the first sellouts, partaking of that forbidden fruit. Cain sold out to his jealousy and his anger. David, of course, comes to mind. Sexual temptation was his price tag. Solomon sold out, giving in to foreign women and the high price of fame and fortune. Samson sold out for a little pleasure and a little drink. Peter sold out as he denied Jesus 3 times. Demas sold out to a love of the world. And then, of course, there's Judas, whose price tag was 30 pieces of silver. So what's your price? Well, understand that we've already been bought. For you have been bought for a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body, Paul says. Think about this. What if some random real estate agent came and put a sign in your yard for sale? Your home that you own, or maybe the bank owns right now, but you will own. What if some random real estate agent comes and puts a for sale sign in your yard? What would you do? Well, you would confront them and probably say, hey, there's been a mistake. This is not the property you're looking for. I own this house. And what if the real estate agent says, no mistake. I love this house. I'm going to sell it. Well, you would be incensed, right? You would be irate. No, this is not for sale. I own this house. You can't just come and sell it out from under me. But think about that when it comes to our integrity, when it comes to our character. God owns this piece of property. And you're going to sell it out from under him? It belongs to him. He owns every acre of real estate. There is a big old sold sign in our hearts. He owns every inch of real estate, and it continues to increase in value, and therefore I'm off the market. I'm not going to sell it from out from under him. You know what the 2 biggest appetites are for most people? The 2 biggest appetites for most people are food and sex. It is. What do you notice about these 2 things? Well, they're reasonable, aren't they? They're good. But man has a propensity to take something that is good and even God-given and pervert it. Food's a good thing. You need food to sustain life. But certainly we can overindulge. We can become gluttonous. We can eat to the point that we are unhealthy. Sex is the same way. Sex isn't bad. Sex isn't dirty. Sex is good. It's a gift from God as long as it's enjoyed within the confines of a marriage between a man and a woman. And these are certainly not the only appetites that pose a problem. You've got all the P's: power, popularity, prestige, and the list goes on. All of us have a choice to make. Will I be ruled by my appetite, or will I be ruled by God? Will I be guided by my appetite, or will I be guided by my integrity? Proverbs 11:3, Dale read it a moment ago. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the perversity of the treacherous will destroy them. So the upright takes a long look. They see the long-term result, while the treacherous are short-sighted and they only see the immediate payoff. Our appetites focus on the now. They want now, not later. Instant gratification is their specialty, which means that we must say no to our appetite in order to protect our integrity. Then that's really hard, because when you're hungry, you only want to eat. And when you're really hungry, you don't want a slow-cooked meal. You want fast food. McDonald's, Wendy's, something. Just fill my stomach because I want it now. Look with me at Genesis chapter 25. Let's begin reading in verse 27. It says, when the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field. But Jacob was a civilized man living in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. When Jacob had cooked a stew one day, Esau came in from the field and was exhausted, and Esau said to Jacob, please let me have a mouthful of that red stuff there, for I am exhausted. Therefore, he was called Edom by name. But Jacob said, first, sell me your birthright. Esau said, look, I'm about to die, so of what use is the birthright to me? And Jacob said, first, swear to me. So he swore an oath to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and got up and went on his way. So Esau despised his birthright. So many of us know the story of Jacob and Esau, although it would be more historically and grammatically correct to call it Esau and Jacob, because the firstborn was always mentioned first. Nevertheless, the firstborn had special status in the household. Doesn't matter if you had 2 kids or 50 kids, the firstborn son got all the rights and privileges that come with the birthright. It was a double portion. The best part of the deal was judicial authority, meaning that if there was a dispute among family members, you got to settle it. If there was ever a blessing to have, it was this one. You have a squabble, you have something going on in the family, you have judicial authority, you become the man of the house, you become ruler, you become king of your own household. And this was a big deal because it was equivalent to God's blessing over you. So that's the birthright, and that's what Esau gave up for a bowl of stew. And we look at this and we say, really? Seriously? You're going to give up your birthright for a bowl of stew? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Who would give up the special privileges that come with the birthright just for a bowl of stew? How incredibly dumb is that? It's like a guy going to prison for stealing a truckload of Snapple, right? You know what else it's like? It's like giving up your marriage for images on a computer. It's like giving up your wife and kids over a one-night stand. It's like forfeiting your career because of an addiction. We make silly, unreasonable, and devastating trade-offs all the time. We give up later for now all the time. Look at verse 30 again. And Esau said to Jacob, please, let me have a mouthful of that red stuff there, for I am exhausted. If you use the NIV, it states, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. Esau is hangry. You ever been hangry? Where you're tired and you're hungry and you're angry because you're tired and hungry? You just want something to eat. You want to fill your stomach. And Jacob takes advantage. He starts cooking. Esau says, quick, give me some of that. Hurry, I need it now. That's his appetite talking, right? I've got to have it. I need it. I want it. Give it to me. And because he's famished, because his appetite has taken center stage, he's vulnerable. He's a sitting duck, and his brother knows it. Any of you here the youngest in your family? Being the youngest in your family means that you probably had to take some mistreatment and abuse from your older siblings, right? They probably picked on you, maybe beat up on you, used you as a punching bag, and you had no leverage. There's nothing you could do about it until you got older and bigger and maybe stronger and you could fight back. But maybe, just maybe, one of those older siblings messed up and you saw it. So you don't want me to tell Mom that you snuck out of the house the other night? Oh, so you don't want me telling Mom and Dad that you were with that guy or that girl you're not supposed to be with? How much is that worth to you? How much are you willing to pay me in order to keep my mouth closed? Every now and then, you might get a little bit of leverage that works to your advantage. Jacob's in rarefied air here. He has that opportunity, and he's ready to take full advantage of it. The shrewd Jacob is thinking to himself, what's the most that I can get out of this? And so he says, first, sell me your birthright. Well, go big or go home, right, I guess. And the only logical reply to that should have been, no, what else? Because I'm not selling you my birthright. I mean, the birthright was Esau's future. Who in their right mind would trade their future for a bowl of stew? Who would trade their integrity for a bowl of stew? Who would trade their self-respect for a bowl of stew? Who would trade their relationship with their kids for a bowl of stew? Who would trade their reputation, their profession, their marriage, their soul for a bowl of stew? And the answer is nobody, and potentially everybody. And we read this story and we think it's ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind would trade their birthright for a bowl of stew, but the bowl's not sitting in front of you. It's a completely different matter when you read this from the outside looking in. You can pass your judgment, but the bowl of stew isn't sitting in front of you. Because when the bowl of stew is sitting in front of you, it's much easier to make some pretty ridiculous decisions. It's amazing the bad transactions that we have made in a moment of weakness. Look at verse 32. Esau said, look, I'm about to die, so of what use then is the birthright to me? Well, that's a little dramatic, isn't it? You're not about to die, you just walked into the tent. But again, that's his appetite talking. These are the words of right now. Esau is building his case. He's using a tactic that we've all used before, and it's called justification. Well, I mean, what good is my birthright right now? I mean, that's years and years and years in the future. I don't need that right now. I mean, what purpose does that serve me? I'm hungry. What I need now is food and sustenance. Jacob is willing to play along. Well, it isn't worth anything right now. Do you hear it? You hear the echo of the words from Proverbs chapter 11, the integrity of the upright will guide them. The upright see right. Later is longer, now is now. And now is gone. And that now, it's gone. It's over. Now is gone in a flash. And all you're left with is the less than appetizing aftermath of now. Verse 33 and 34. And Jacob said, first, swear to me. So he swore an oath to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and got up and went on his way. So Esau despised his birthright. And again, we look at this and we think this is insane. This is crazy. Who in the world does that? That had better be some pretty good stew, right? That had better be the best stew that he had ever eaten. However, I'm sure other people have probably thought the same thing about us and our decisions. I've had parents, when I was a youth minister, come to me and they're completely distraught because their children were making decisions that they didn't agree with. Talked to others who their marriage was falling apart because their spouse had drowning themselves in alcohol. Seems foolish, but we've all been guilty of making some pretty lopsided trades, and we convince ourselves that in the moment it's worth it, that it's not that big of a deal. We decide that we don't care, but only when it's too late to care. Notice that last line again. So Esau despised his birthright. I mean, what else could he have done? He was dying, right? I mean, he had to do it. He needed sustenance. Who cares about some silly birthright anyway? Like, what good does that do me now? Esau lied to himself in order to save face with himself, but Esau teaches us something that I think many of us already know, and that is that it doesn't look like a bowl of stew in the moment. It doesn't look like the worst decision you could ever make in the moment. In the now, it's the most important thing on our mind and on our heart. It's later that we come to regret it because we see it for what it really is. And by the way, we talked about structural integrity last week. Remember what we said about structural integrity? Well, we said this about integrity. We said that it's personal, but it's not private. Any breach in our integrity is going to lead to other breaches in our integrity, and it's going to cause collateral damage. Other people are going to deal with our breaches of integrity. And certainly we see that here with Jacob and Esau. Remember what nations they became? Well, they became Israel and Edom, which also became the names of the families that descended from them. And so these two nations continued the sibling rivalry, and it was a tense relationship, just as it was between the brothers. And you can look at Numbers chapter 20, verses 14 through 20 sometime, and you can get a picture of this tension. But nevertheless, the two nations shared a common bond that cannot be denied, and that bond was betrayed in the tragic events of Jerusalem's fall to Babylon. When Babylon invaded and destroyed Jerusalem, Edom was there to take advantage of the plundering other Israelite cities, capturing, killing other Israelite refugees. Long story short, compromised integrity led to major collateral damage. So I said that each week during this series we have a question attached, and here's the question for you this morning. You ready? What's your bowl of stew? What's your bowl of stew? What is competing with your integrity? What do you have a difficult time saying no to? What are you talking yourself into that others are trying to talk yourself out of? Like Esau, I think you know what hangs in the balance. You cannot claim ignorance here. Paul said it, and if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's descendants, heirs according to promise. Like Jacob and Esau, we are descendants of Abraham. We are heirs according to promise. We have a birthright that is guaranteed, and it's better than a double portion. It's the best portion we could ever receive. It has eternal value and never decreases in value. Are you going to trade that birthright for a temporary bowl of stew? That birthright entitles you to all special privileges that come with being in the family of God. And we can enjoy those privileges now, but certainly we will enjoy them later. So here's my advice. Don't trade what you value most for something that you have an appetite for in the now. Don't trade later for now. Don't sell your birthright for a temporary bowl of stew. It started off like any other normal football play. The Tishmingo High School quarterback took the snap, handed it off to the running back, and that's where things took a turn. The running back then turned and purposely ran in the opposite direction. And everybody in the stadium is going nuts. What in the world is he doing? But here's the scenario. Tishmingo had to win by 7 points in order to go to the playoffs. The team they were playing just had to stop them and win the game, and they go to the playoffs. The score was 16-14. Tishmingo was ahead by 2, and the coach calculated the odds of being able to drive 40 yards in 7 seconds and win by 7 or more. He didn't like those odds. So he decided to run this play where his son, the quarterback, handed the ball off to Shane Hill, the running back, and have him run in the opposite direction, get a safety for the other team, tie the score 16-16, and then go into overtime and take his chances that he could win by 7. And that's what happened. They went into overtime. They won by 7. They go to the playoffs. Everybody in the stadium was confused. The opposing coach wasn't. He knew exactly what was happening. And he was screaming at his team to tackle the running back, because if they just tackled him, they would have gone to the playoffs. But everyone was so confused that Tishmingo ended up winning the game. And I think it's much like that for us as Christians, right? Many people are watching. The world is spectating, and they see us running in the opposite direction. Why would you run in the opposite direction? Our decisions seem foolish to them, right? To them, our way of life is void of pleasure or happiness. Like a tailback taking the ball and intentionally running in the opposite direction. The crowd doesn't understand. Why would we deny ourselves and live the Christian life? But that's what integrity is all about. It's doing the right thing even when others may think it's the wrong thing. It's running in the opposite direction of the crowd, and the best part is it's winning, right? What's your bowl of stew? What is it that is threatening your integrity? And don't let it rule you. Say no to the now and say yes to God. Let's pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for another day and for the opportunity to be here to serve you, to worship you, to encourage one another. God, we're so grateful for this body that meets here. May we glorify you in all that we do, and may we be a people of integrity so that when we go all out for you, that people will notice and perhaps want to know more about you. May we be the light in this community and beyond. We love you, God, and it's in your Son's precious name we pray. Amen. Can we help you this morning? Maybe there's been a breach in integrity, and maybe you need the prayers of this church family. Maybe you want to come by and talk to me or one of the other staff members this week, and we'd certainly be open to that as well. Maybe you've been contemplating what it means to take the ball and run in the opposite direction, begin a daily walk with God, and maybe you're ready to put on Christ in baptism this morning. Certainly, we'd love to do that and celebrate that. But whatever your need is, don't leave here this morning without being right with God. Why don't you come as we stand and as we sing?